What is going on, guys? So here we are. We're a few days into October, and deer season started a few weeks back already here in western North Carolina. And I'm getting geeked for season. Can't wait to go out. I'm not going to go out until probably firearm season because my property really isn't that spectacular for bucks until about the rut. Typically, the bucks don't really show up much until the rut. So about a month ago, I went back and created a new mock scrape in an area. I had been running a mock scrape in one specific spot for several years, and it was getting really good attention by both does and bucks. However, things have started to grow up in that particular area, and it's not quite as hot as it used to be. Like this past year, probably got the least amount of attention from deer. And so I decided to move it just slightly. And where I put my mock scrapes that get the best results are almost always on edges. We're talking about where the woods meets a field. And it's also got to be an area where there is relatively high traffic for deer. Like if you find a deer trail that happens to go right along an edge, that is probably going to be a good spot. Really, it is all about location, location, location. When it comes to making mock scrapes, I quickly learned that you absolutely do not need to buy any mock scrape kit or special rope or whatever. I mean, I not that I want to, badmouth any of these products because I haven't necessarily tried them. However, I have discovered that if you are setting a mock scrape in the right location, you don't really need to do much. And what I do is I will typically just go out in the woods and I'll cut myself a length of grapevine, probably, about that long, maybe a little bit longer. And, I would say the diameter is probably about like that. You can go probably a little bit bigger. And I just hang it from a tree branch using twine. I'll cut a little slit into the grapevine and I'll tie some twine in there, and then I'll attach it to a branch that's hanging higher above and just hang it down so that the bottom of the grapevine is roughly around where my waistline is. And I have had great success doing that. I will get a stick and I will scrape up the ground underneath the vine. And yes, I do take a leak in it. Whether I don't even know if I really even need to do that, but I do because it doesn't hurt anything. It's certainly better than going out and spending money on something that you're just going to pour on the ground. And I don't apply anything to the vine itself. So I'm going to show you a series of some trail cam videos just from the past month. When I first set up this particular mock scrape, like I said, I did exactly what I just told you and put a trail camera on a tree fairly close to the scrape just so I could see what kind of activity I would get. Now, surprisingly, the very first deer that came and checked out my scrape was literally like the next day after I set the scrape up, and it was a buck, which is kind of unusual for my area. Usually this time of the year, September-ish, I'm really not getting much for bucks on my property. It's pretty much just all does until you get closer to the rut. Usually by the end of October to the first couple of weeks of November is when I'm really getting the buck activity. When the pre-rut started, the rut is starting to really fire up. That's when the bucks start showing up. But this particular spot, unfortunately, a tree branch actually fell down from some wind and was blocking most of the view of my camera. So you just barely see the buck. The camera didn't actually even trigger until the buck had already checked it out. But you can see the buck walking away from it and the vine swinging. But then after that, I went back a few days later just to make sure everything was still good with my camera and everything, which is what I typically do. I saw the stick, moved it, and for the rest of the month, I was getting frequent doe and fawn visits. And it's not like I was getting deer coming past the spot every single day, but a vast majority of the time when a deer came by that particular location, a lot of times they checked it out. They checked out the grapevine. I never saw any of the does rubbing their face on it or anything, but they were sniffing it, so they were clearly checking it out. Now, just this past weekend, I went and checked my camera and was pleasantly surprised to see that first buck that showed up like a month ago, who was still in velvet, now his velvet is gone, and he really came and he was really working that grapevine. And in fact, probably one of the best videos I've ever had during daylight of a buck working my scrape. And he wasn't digging, I mean, he wasn't scraping or anything, but he was really working that grapevine. Like he came back once, and then he came back a couple days later, and was working that. And still there was some does that came in. I have a really big mature doe. She comes in every once in a while, and she sniffs the grapevine, and she was giving it a quick sniff in between the two buck visits. So I'm really, really happy. And honestly, I've had great luck when I do it this way. The formula, again, you don't need to spend money. You don't need to buy any scents or anything. Cut yourself a grapevine, hang it from a branch, make sure it's on the edge of a field, in woods, make sure that it happens to be right within visible range of the deer. Like this particular mock scrape isn't actually on a trail, but it's really close to where the deer are always walking. And so they probably could see it, and they came out, and now they have a tendency to come through there now. I think the scrape is actually a draw. Now, had I put this scrape somewhere like in the woods, which I've done before, I've experimented over the years, I found some good spots that look like, hey, this would be a great spot for a scrape, even though there weren't any trails close by, and thinking, well, maybe I could get deer to go over there. Well, no, I have never had luck doing it that way. I've only had luck making them on field edges, again, and very, very close, if not right on, next to the trail that's pretty active. And like I said, grapevine, no scents needed. The only scent I lay down is my own pee. Kind of. So, and it works. It honestly works. And it is amazing. In fact, the original scrape that I had made, like I want to say 4 or 5 seasons ago, I never changed that grapevine up until now. And in fact, I wonder if part of the reason why maybe my previous scrape wasn't working so great this past year is maybe because the grapevine was just getting really old and just needed to be replaced. I'm not sure if, the fact that a fresh grapevine that has all the moisture and water still in it, if somehow that makes it more attractive to the deer. I don't really know what it is about the grapevine that makes them want to come out and sniff it and use it. But it works. It works like a charm in my case. So honestly, if you're thinking about making a mock scrape and you haven't done so yet, I would go with that formula. And again, you don't need to spend money on these ropes and this other stuff. Just use it if you have grapevine in your woods, which a lot of places do. If you have hardwoods, there's a good chance you may have grapevine. Cut yourself a length of it like that, and just use that. Just hang it from a tree. And I let it just dangle so it moves all over the place, and the bucks seem to really like that. I mean, the video shows that buck was really working it, and the grapevine swinging around, and it doesn't have to be like solid as a rock and just sticking there. It can move around freely. So yeah, I would give it a try if you haven't already. It's a great way to make a mock scrape without having to spend any money.